What if the quietest girl in school held the loudest secret of them all? The bell rang, unleashing a stampede of teenagers into the main hallway of Franklin Ridge High. Sneakers squeaked, lockers slammed. Laughter bounced off the walls like rubber bullets. It was just another ordinary day, until it wasn't. In the midst of the chaos walked Amara Bennett, a soft-spoken black girl with cocoa-brown skin and sharp, knowing eyes. Her braids were tied back into a neat bun, and her uniform hugged her frame in a way that made her look older than her 17 years. She didn't speak much, didn't gossip or joke in the halls. But she listened, and she watched. And that made some people nervous. Like Carter Briggs. He strutted through the hallway like he owned it, blonde hair slicked back, collar of his white polo turned up, confidence reeking of entitlement. He was the kind of boy who believed the school existed for his amusement and that girls like Amara were nothing more than shadows in his spotlight. As Amara reached her locker, Carter suddenly swerved, his face twisted in a sneer. With no warning, he slammed her against the metal, hard. The hallway gasped. The sound echoed, loud, sharp, humiliating. "See this?" Carter growled, gripping the back of her neck like she was prey. "This is where you belong." His voice was venom, loud enough to command attention, cruel enough to invite laughter. His three friends stood nearby, chuckling like hyenas, clapping him on the back as if this was some kind of joke, a sport. Amara's cheek pressed against the cold steel, her palms flat, her back straight. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she didn't flinch. She simply stood. And somehow, that rattled the hallway more than any scream would have. Students passing by pretended not to see. Some walked faster, eyes down. A few girls gripped their textbooks tighter, lips pressed into thin lines of shame and fear. "You think you're equal just 'cause they let you in here?" Carter hissed. "Don't get comfortable." He finally let go, stepping back with a grin like a kid who'd just knocked over a sandcastle. But when Amara turned around, her eyes locked onto his, calm, unreadable, unwavering. That gaze didn't burn with anger or sadness. It was still, cold, knowing, and that terrified him more than any slap. "Say something," Carter barked, suddenly unsettled by her silence. She didn't. Her silence wasn't submission, it was judgment, it was justice, and it was coming. That lunch period, Carter's arrogance returned. He stormed into the cafeteria, his tray already loaded with pizza, chips, and the attention of half the room. He spotted her sitting alone, far in the corner, eating quietly. He sauntered over, loud on purpose. "Still eating by yourself, huh?" he mocked, raising his voice so the nearby tables would hear. "Guess that's what happens when you're different." The cafeteria hushed. Forks froze, heads turned. Amara slowly put her fork down, met his eyes. Again, no emotion, no rage, just that same piercing silence. It was deafening. He grabbed her tray, full of untouched food, and flung it onto the floor. Gasps, chairs scraped backward. Someone muttered, "What the hell?" But Amara didn't even blink. And Carter? His hands began to shake. That night, the rumor started. "She's not just some student," someone whispered. "Her dad's like government or something," another replied. "I heard 2 guys in suits were at the gate earlier today." Carter laughed it off in his group chat. "Probably some security drill," he typed. Who cares? But he was lying. He cared. Because in the pit of his stomach, something told him he'd messed with the wrong person. The next morning confirmed it. 2 black SUVs sat outside the school. 2 tall men in tailored black suits stood by the front entrance. One was bald with mirrored sunglasses. The other held a briefcase. Both looked like they could snap Carter in half with a glance. Carter approached, trying to pretend it was a coincidence. Maybe they were here for something else. Until one of them turned and said, "Mr. Briggs, Special Agent Morgan would like a word." Carter's face drained of color. That name, Morgan. His father used to talk about a Morgan, the guy who trained FBI agents, the guy who cracked human trafficking rings, the guy who testified in D.C. last year. And then it clicked. Amara Bennett, Morgan. She wasn't just anyone. She was the daughter of the man powerful people whispered about. Carter turned, and there she was, standing by the lockers, calm, watching, not smiling, not gloating, just present. And suddenly, Carter wasn't a predator anymore. He was prey, and everyone knew it. Rumors didn't crawl, they sprinted. By second period, the entire school buzzed like a shaken beehive. Whispers flew from ear to ear like wildfire across dry brush. Did you hear who her dad is? She's FBI royalty. They said Briggs is being watched now. Nobody laughed at Carter's jokes that day. In fact, nobody sat with him at lunch. His so-called friends had evaporated into different corners of the school, avoiding eye contact and acting like they barely knew him. Amara, on the other hand, sat alone as always. But now, no one saw her as invisible. They saw her as the eye of a hurricane. That afternoon, as gym class ended, Coach Reynolds asked Carter to stay behind. "Word of advice," the coach said gruffly. "You might want to write a letter, apologize, before this gets out of hand." Carter's jaw dropped. "What do you mean, gets out of hand?" Coach didn't blink. "Word is, Agent Morgan doesn't like when bullies target his daughter, especially not racists. You're lucky this is just internal, for now." Carter swallowed hard. He walked home in silence that day, past the SUV still parked near the gate, past the students whispering behind his back. For the first time in his life, he was invisible, and he hated it. That night, he typed out an apology, deleted it, typed it again. Finally, he printed it and handed it to the principal the next morning, but Amara never acknowledged it. She didn't need to. Her power had never been in the response. It had always been in the restraint. The following week, something shifted at Franklin Ridge. Teachers subtly included lessons on dignity, empathy, and the power of silence. One student-led assembly brought up the topic of discrimination and mental strength, topics no one would have dared to touch a month ago. Amara never gave a speech. She didn't need to. She became the lesson. One Friday afternoon, as the final bell rang, a younger girl from the freshman class, dark-skinned, shy, approached her. I saw what you did," the girl whispered. "Or what you didn't do, I guess. You didn't fight back, but somehow, he lost. Thank you." Amara simply nodded. As she walked toward the front gate, her father stood waiting in the SUV. Sunglasses on, hands behind his back. Silent. She slid into the back seat. He looked at her in the mirror. "You handled it better than I would have," she smiled faintly. "I learned from the best." They drove away. No sirens, no lights. But the silence they left behind roared louder than any punishment Carter had ever known. Franklin Ridge never forgot that week, not because of what was shouted, but because of what wasn't.